Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. This episode of Proof of Love is brought to you by Vaultoro. Vaultoro is a gold hedging solution for the crypto community. One of the challenges of investing in cryptocurrencies is dealing with volatility. Keeping a diversified portfolio is a key to healthier returns. I keep about 10% of my crypto assets in gold using Vaultoro. Vaultoro allows me to open a gold wallet in seconds where I can trade easily with cryptos and gold. What I like about using Vaultoro instead of Tether is that the gold in my Vaultoro wallet is insured, audited, vaulted in Switzerland, and unlike fiat money, gold has increased in value for the last 20 years. Visit Vaultoro.gold/Tatiana today and get zero trading fees for the first 3 months. That is vault, like a gold vault, and oro, which is Spanish for gold. Vaultoro, ale. Hello, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Proof of Love. Have you been listening to our show so far? You better be. If you haven't been, go to proofoflovecast.com and listen there. By the way, thanks to our sponsor, Vaultoro. Ole! I'm joined today with the beautiful Dr. Stephanie Murphy. Hey, Steph, what's going on?
Hello. I'm really enjoying motivating the listeners by threats and blackmail to listen to our show.
Well, we have to say we will not be issuing any threats or blackmail to our co-hostess with the mostest, Lauren, because she's been posting amazing pictures of her in Japan. So I'm really happy that she's taking the time off. But me and Steph, we're stacking some EPs. That's episodes for short for those of you that aren't in the podcasting world, stacking some F's. So corny. Anyway, and today we're going to be talking a little bit. Steph, what are we talking about today? Because I think this is kind of a cool topic that's going to resonate with our listeners.
Yeah, today we are talking about intuition and self-trust. And
self-sabotage.
And self-sabotage, yes. So how do you tell if you feel a gut instinct, if it's leading you in the right direction, or if it's leading you astray? How do you know when to trust your intuition?
I think it's like voodoo. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, I think I have really good intuition. But I do think, okay, fine. This is my question because I'm curious, right? Like, how do you know that you're not necessarily driving yourself down the wrong path? But I find that my intuition is usually pretty good. I think the self-doubt is where the problem comes in. But I think that there's a reason for self-doubt. Because if you read a lot of these like psychology books or like self-improvement things like, oh, your subconscious is driving you to the thing that is the most broken or whatever it is. So I don't know. And so that's why sometimes I say it's voodoo, because I think you really can't hold on to things so tightly to know if you are right or wrong. Sometimes you just have to like hold your nose and be like, all right, I'm going with this feeling. Let's see what happens. And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to mindfulness. And what I mean by that is really noticing, taking the time to check in with yourself and notice how you feel and name how you feel. So for example, if you have a feeling or the sense that you should do something, right? I should apply to this job, or I should go out with this person, or I should, move to a different house or apartment. Take a minute and sit with those feelings. Like, first notice, where do you feel that urge to do this in your body? Do you feel any kind of tightness or warmth or whatever it may be anywhere in your body? And can you associate that sensation with any kind of emotional feeling, right? The first step to understanding our feelings is really like localizing where we feel them in the body, right? So if you have trouble naming and identifying your feelings, you might not be able to say, I'm angry, but you might be able to say, I feel this tightness in my forehead and my fists, and I feel this heat in my chest. And then after a while, you start to associate those feelings and sensations, the physical sensations, with feelings, and then you can more easily name them. And now when you think about following through with this decision that you have the intuition to do, imagine what it would be like if you actually did that. Do you feel nervous or anxious if you imagine yourself following through with it? Do you feel calm and peaceful? Do you feel secure and safe if you imagine yourself following through with that? Do you feel a mixture of things? That's the most important first step. And also, when you notice those feelings, you're noticing them without judgment, just observing, like almost like a camera or like an outside person would be observing what's going on for you. And any way you feel is okay. The most important part is just to listen to yourself without judgment. What do you think of that so far?
Yeah, I think so far that sounds like, practical application of these principles. Sure. Okay, but I also feel like, I don't know. To me, it's like, what, people don't feel their feelings? To me, already, that's just like a weird premise. But I understand that different people have a hard time identifying how they're feeling. And maybe mindfulness, I think, is useful for everybody. But I do find it a little bit hard to understand how somebody could not know that they've got a bad feeling about something, because I feel like they're pretty prevalent. You think that people are just like suppressed like that? That sounds super judgy. I don't mean it in that way. But do you think that people just they're not that aware when they're making decisions?
Yeah, I think people are led astray or they second guess themselves because they don't really listen to themselves about what they're feeling.
Sure.
And what is an intuition except it's our brain and our body integrating all kinds of really complicated information. That could be sensory information, it could be feelings, it could be history.
Those could be red flags later on in hindsight, right?
Right, and
that you don't catch necessarily, but you do on some level.
Yeah, we as humans have developed an intuition, because we had to be able to make quick decisions about something that might be dangerous or something that might be an opportunity that only lasts a few seconds, right? And so we had to be able to decide something really quickly, and that resulted in our brain being able to integrate all this information and spit out something fast, which is what we call an intuition, right? That's the output of all these inputs. And so you have to listen to that, right? I mean, sometimes we say, I don't know, I've been wrong in the past. And then we start to second guess ourselves, right? And so often the first thing you feel or the first thing that comes up is the thing that's right on. That's why the phrase second guessing exists, right? Because the second thing you think is, well, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, so this makes me think of something. Sean Stone was telling me about these mice, right? And the study was basically showing mice that, many, many generations back had been poisoned by X substance or whatever. There was some kind of like negative association with an experience in life. Mm-hmm. And then many generations later, even though those mice had never lived through that thing, they would have an aversion to that specific item. Mm-hmm. Do you think that carries?
Well, that could be epigenetically passed on, where we don't change our DNA, but we change the way that the DNA is packaged and wrapped, which influences the expression of certain genes. So it could be an epigenetic thing. It could also be a learned behavior where the children of the mice observed their ancestors doing a certain thing, and they didn't understand why they were avoiding that food, but they learned it from them because they observed them. And, we learn a lot from observing our parents and our ancestors, and we might not always understand the reasons why, but later on when we encounter the same situation, our first instinct is to do the same thing that we saw our ancestors doing. Now, what if your ancestors were doing something dysfunctional is the question that comes up next, right? Is that what you were about to say?
Well, sure. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, what if you observe something dysfunctional? Well, you have to reteach yourself. You have to reteach yourself how to respond to that situation and realize, that you're doing this thing because you learned it and maybe it served you in the past. For example, right, when maybe when you were a child, you learned that it wasn't safe to speak up about your feelings or to say that you have a preference or that you want privacy or something like that because you weren't going to get it. And, it might be dangerous because you might get punished or something like that. And so as an adult, you learn to sit on your preferences and your feelings and you don't speak up about what you need. Well, that no longer serves you. You're out of that dangerous environment of your childhood. You're now an adult. And you want to make a change because you see how much it's costing you in your life to be quiet about your needs and preferences. So you reteach yourself. You try a little bit, a small step about speaking up for what you want, and then you notice how you feel. Maybe you feel a little anxious because you're like bracing yourself for the other shoe to drop, but then you observe that, oh, nothing bad happened. And actually, I feel great because I got what I wanted now that I spoke up about it. So then you just keep teaching yourself over and over again by doing the thing, taking a small step, and then noticing how you feel afterwards.
I think that really brings it back to the whole process of mindfulness. And I think people don't necessarily put aside that time in their day to even really sit with them, with those feelings. I feel like earlier I was thinking, who are these people that don't know what their feelings are? But I think people are probably rushing through their time and sort of suppressing that. And overall, I think it extends to like a larger self-development, right? Are you really willing to put in the work? Because it's not something that happens. You read a book and now you're a perfect person. And then, you read one more book and now you've definitely ascended to the heavens. And that's basically all you had to do. It took 2 months and now you're perfect. I mean, that's like a constant growth pattern as well. So people probably get better at listening to themselves the more that they spend time listening to themselves in other practical applications.
Yeah, absolutely. Mindfulness is a practice just like anything. So you have to practice it. And I'm not saying I do this all the time. I mean, I'm not saying even the most advanced yoga teachers or meditation gurus do this all the time. Everybody has moments where they're really not being mindful or checking in with themselves about how they feel. So there's no judgment here or anything like that. I'm just saying that I think this is the best way to hone your intuition and to develop trust in yourself, that you can trust that what your first instinct is leading you towards what you're supposed to do instead of leading you astray.
Yeah, I'm with you. So do you think that men are any better at this than women, or women are better? Traditionally people say women's intuition is better. What would you comment on that, or you don't really think so?
No, I mean, I think that all people have feelings and all people have emotions. Our culture tends to place a lot of value on being logical and not being emotional or touchy-feely, but that's a myth because all of our brains as human beings, don't care what gender you are, we have a lot of space in our mind, in our brain, that's dedicated to processing feelings and emotions. And we need that in order to make use of our intuition. And, if women are more intuitive, I think that must be a cultural thing because it's more culturally acceptable, at least in the culture that I grew up in, for women to express their emotions and to use them. And in fact, they're expected to do that. And they're considered to be emotional creatures. And they're often devalued because of that, because our culture doesn't value feelings as much as it values logic and, unemotionalness, acting like a robot.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, I remember one of the terms that you used was emotional labor, and that was sort of like an interesting concept to me because that is what women do a lot, right? Or the social directors managing the family emotions, making sure that everybody's good. I mean, the father is and let's obviously talk about more of a traditional thing. The dad's got to go to work and stuff, but the mom's work is kind of undermined a little bit or like underestimated. And I think that, I don't know, I find as I get older, the idea of being home with children not as terrible as I used to think of it. I think it's actually a pretty worthwhile thing to do with your time, especially if you love your kids and if you can afford to and stuff. But I don't think that people necessarily think of it as that important necessarily. So I agree with you basically.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking about the second shift and about the concept of, quote, women's work being devalued. I mean, look, if you took all of the jobs that your average stay-at-home mother is expected to do, and I'm talking about secretary, cook, chauffeur, therapist, nanny, financial planner. Yeah. I mean, and multitudes of other jobs, you would be talking about paying professionals hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I think there was a study that I saw once that said if you actually took all these jobs and added up how much it would cost to hire someone to do all this work, it would be 6 figures a year worth of pay that you would need to pay someone to do this. But
I bet.
Yeah, but I mean, women are expected to do this for free. And it's not just for children. Often it's for caring for older adults as well. And so you have
Totally.
right. You have a lot of women who are in this stage of life where they have young children and aging parents. And there's also studies that show that when an aging parent has children that are men and children that are women, it's the sisters that are expected to take care of the parents. The brothers are not expected to. And that's in American culture. Most Western cultures, I would say, have the same kind of standards. But why does the work fall on the women? It's work that's undervalued, devalued, and it's just expected that women do that. And a lot of women do it with no complaints, but they're doing a lot of work. So take a minute to acknowledge the people in your life who do this kind of work and let them know that what they do is valuable, because without it, society wouldn't work.
I think society falls apart without a strong family. And God, I find myself sounding like this, family values, you need a home and a nucleus. But no, like moms do so much, fathers do so much. And I think that we are seeing, different kinds of standards. I don't know, maybe people seem very traumatized when they're dating and stuff. And I don't think that divorce has been particularly helpful for the development of romantic relationships for generations of people now. And not that it's only there. And I'm not saying that people in a bad marriage should necessarily stay together, but I think that some kind of disruption there isn't particularly great.
Well, the problem with these very rigid gender roles is what happens when someone doesn't naturally fit into them. It's all well and good as long as you naturally like living in the gender role that you're expected to live in by your culture that you're born into. But what happens if you don't conform? And that's really, to me, is a marker of a society, is how do they treat people who are outside of the box? Is it okay to be outside of the box? Or are you going to get a lot of pressure and crap until you conform or die, basically?
Oh, I don't think we have to go that far. I think, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. And I'm just saying, like, if people want to do it, it should be valued more appropriately, because they think it's such a critical component of growing up for anybody.
Yeah, well,
having that support system, I think that's the basis of how you interact with the world for the rest of your life.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot about my childhood. I actually saw my parents doing very traditional gender roles, acting out very traditional gender roles, where my mom was a stay-at-home mother. And, I'm glad for that, because she spent a lot of time and energy on me, and she was very invested in, helping me have the happiest childhood and adulthood as possible. And my dad was, doing his role, and he was basically making sure the family runs. And, but I saw that, and I started picking up on the fact that people don't value women's work, and I saw that the the masculine role sort of got all the glory. And I was thinking, okay, well, if this is the deal, if you can either put your energy into being at home and making a nice home and raising kids, or you can put your energy into going outside into the world and making money and doing things and accomplishing things that culture values, I'm taking the man's role. That was what I thought when I was a kid. And it took me a long time to sort of like reconcile my femininity with that. What about you? Did you have a similar experience?
I think, when people talk about men and women roles, I think that people feel like they have to fit into one or the other. And I naturally kind of fall into a more feminine role, even though I think in business I have more manly attributes. But yeah, I was just talking with somebody the other day, and they were saying that they really felt like a boy, growing up, that they would have kind of boy costumes like for Halloween, and their family didn't really stifle them. But yeah, I think that there's definitely things that I've been averse to because I qualify them as boy things. But there's also some comfort that I find in those roles as well. And I think that they're there for a certain reason that relates to me and kind of resonates with me rather. So, I don't think anybody should be that rigid about it. Live and let live, everybody, relax. But I do think that, I fall more into the regular old girly category. I have a lot of face masks in my closet.
Right. Yeah. And then how would that be different if you grew up in a different culture? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. We can't do an experiment where we plop ourselves somewhere else in the world and then grow up genderless or grow up with really rigid gender roles. So I
Because
don't know.
you also have your nature too. You know what I mean? Like people
Mhm.
are so different genetically in terms of what they're predisposed to. It's not just the environment
Yeah, and
that
I don't
people are
even know
in.
how useful it is to talk about is it nature or nurture, or it's obviously it's both. But like I think where I'm at right now with this is like I think that I like what Eastern cultures say, especially like, the yoga philosophy about like there is sort of like this masculine and feminine energy in everyone. It doesn't matter what their body is like. Everyone has masculinity and femininity within them. And it's not even about really maleness and femaleness. It's more about like different types of energy that complement each other and that are polarities, and that those polarities are attracted to each other. And so it's just about finding a balance between your own internal masculine and feminine energy. That
Right.
probably sounds really weird, but
No, I like that philosophy, and I think it makes sense. It's almost like not like a yin and yang, but just different pushes and pulls. And I think that
Mhm.
resonates more with people. But I think what's unfortunate when you talk about gender roles now is that people like just get so, I don't know, bent out of shape one way or the other. And so yeah, I haven't heard that perspective on the Asian side, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely. And people do get really bent out of shape about this, especially when someone doesn't conform. I've seen a lot, but also when someone does conform, right? Like, what if you just naturally fall really well into the uh, traditional feminine or masculine role, like my parents, I think, did? I think they were very happy in those roles and they chose them. And, I've met some other people who it seems like that's their natural alignment. They're just really happy in those kind of traditional roles. And hey, that's fine. That's their choice too. I mean, like you do you, right? Like focus on yourself and figure it out. And if someone doesn't conform, that's okay too, right? Like they're not hurting anyone. They're not ripping apart the fabric of society if they're a little bit different. It's like everyone has to find their own balance and live their own life and hopefully be as happy as possible.
Amen. I don't know if I feel like we've gotten pretty far from the original question, but I believe. Is there anything else that we want to talk about, or is that a good note to finish up the show today?
Well, let's see. We did intuition versus self-sabotage, and then we did sort of like masculinity and femininity. I think we can call it a day, actually. I
I
think
think
that's
we've
good.
covered some of the big things. It's a Friday when people are listening to this. We can't blow their minds too hard. um, so if you guys like this show, please share it on your socials. We depend very much on your love. So show it to us on Twitter, and you can find us all over the place. But the main website is proofoflovecast.com. Proof of Love comes out on Fridays. There's also the Tatiana Show on Tuesdays, sometimes Thursdays, or other random days. So that's thetatianashow.com. Thanks once again to our sponsor, Vaultoro. Ole! and we'll see you next time. Steph, any parting words?
Olay.
Excellent. All right, go forth and prosper, my friends. Bye.
Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Thank you for listening to Proof of Love. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Proof of Lovecast. More episodes can be found at proofoflovecast.com. And make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. Proof of Love has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond. You are listening to Proof of Love with Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on Proof of Love is intended as financial advice, legal advice, therapy, or really anything other than entertainment. Please take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're hearing us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on, or of any of the sponsors or affiliate products that you may hear about on the show.